The ancient dragon Taeyong sat on top of his crystal tower, looking down at the human settlement below. His golden eyes had watched this same view for 3,000 years. The desert winds of planet Draker Prime blew hot and dry across the rocky landscape. Below him, small houses made of metal and stone formed a circle around a central square. Humans moved about their daily work, carrying water, fixing buildings, and trying to survive in this harsh world. Taeyong was not like the younger dragons. He remembered a time when his people, the Velcris, had honor. They had been explorers and builders. But that was long ago. Now they were conquerors. 500 years had passed since the Velcris Empire took control of this sector of space. Humans were one of many species that served as slaves. The dragon shifted his massive body, his blue scales catching the light of the twin suns. He did not enjoy watching the humans suffer, but it was the law of his people. The strong ruled. The weak served. This was the Velcris way. In the settlement below, a young girl named Ji-woo helped her mother carry medical supplies. She was 13 years old, small for her age, with dark hair tied back in a simple braid. Her hands were rough from work, but her eyes were bright and full of life. She smiled at the younger children as they ran past, playing some game with sticks and rocks. Ji-woo, be careful with those boxes, her mother Deun said. Deun was the settlement's medic, one of the few humans allowed to learn advanced medicine. She had kind eyes, but they were always tired. Years of living under Velcris rule had worn down most humans. But not Ji-woo. The girl still had hope. I'm being careful, mother, Ji-woo said. She placed the box down gently near the medical tent. Will Hyun-woo be home today? Deun's face became worried. Don't speak of your brother in the open. You know it's dangerous. Ji-woo nodded. She knew her older brother Hyun-woo was part of the resistance. Secret groups of humans who fought against the Velcris. It was forbidden. If caught, the punishment was death. But more humans joined the resistance every year. Hope was a dangerous thing, but it kept them alive. Across the settlement, the leader Jun-ho stood in his small office, looking at maps on a data screen. He was an old man now, his hair gray and his back bent. But his mind was still sharp. He was planning something. Something that could give his people a chance at freedom. But he needed time. Time that was running out. The peace of the morning was broken by a loud sound. Everyone in the settlement stopped and looked up. 6 Velcris soldiers flew down from the sky on their gravity platforms. They wore black armor that reflected no light. Their faces were hidden behind helmets. They carried weapons that could burn a hole through steel. The soldiers landed in the central square. People started to move away, but the soldiers raised their weapons. Nobody moves, one of them said through his helmet speaker. His voice was cold and mechanical. Commander Rakthor stepped off his platform. He was tall, even for a Velcris, standing over 7 feet high. His armor had red markings that showed his rank. He walked slowly through the crowd, looking at each human with disgust. We know there are resistance fighters hiding here, Rakthor said. We found your communication signals. Someone here has been sending messages to other settlements. That is forbidden. The humans stood silent. Fear filled the air like smoke. Children held on to their parents. Old people tried to stay calm. Everyone knew what happened when the Velcris came looking for rebels. Rakthor's soldiers began searching houses. They broke down doors and threw belongings into the street. They scanned everything with their devices, looking for forbidden technology. The humans could only watch as their homes were destroyed. Then one soldier came out of a small house carrying a communication device. It was old Earth technology, modified to send secret messages. The soldier brought it to Rakthor. Found it in this dwelling, Commander, the soldier said. Rakthor looked at the house. It was Deun's home. The commander smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Bring me everyone who lives there. The soldiers dragged Deun into the square. She did not fight. She knew it would only make things worse. They also brought Ji-woo. The young girl's eyes were wide with fear, but she stood straight and did not cry. Where is the man of this house? Rakthor demanded. There is no man, Dune said. My husband died years ago. It's just me and my daughter. Lies, Rakthor said. Our scans show 3 people live here regularly. Dune's heart froze. Hyun-woo. They knew about Hyun-woo. But he was not home. He was hiding with the other resistance members in the caves outside the settlement. She had to protect him. My son visits sometimes, Dune said carefully. But he works in the northern mines. He hasn't been home in months. Rakthor studied her face. He knew she was lying. He turned to Ji-woo. Where is your brother? Ji-woo looked at the commander. She was terrified, but she remembered what Hyun-woo had told her. Never tell them anything. Not even to save yourself. Because they won't just kill you. They'll kill everyone. I don't know, Ji-woo said quietly. Rakthor's hand moved fast. He struck Dune across the face, knocking her to the ground. Ji-woo screamed and ran to her mother, but the soldiers grabbed her and pulled her back. Take the girl, Rakthor ordered. She will tell us what we want to know. No. Please. She's just a child. Dune cried out. She tried to reach for her daughter, but soldiers held her back. Take me instead. I'll tell you whatever you want. You already had your chance to cooperate, Rakthor said. He nodded to his soldiers. They dragged Ji-woo to the center of the square. All the humans were forced to watch. This was part of the punishment. The Velcris wanted everyone to see what happened to those who resisted. High above on his crystal tower, Taeyong watched the scene unfold. He had seen this many times before. The Velcris were not kind masters. But this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the way the small girl did not scream or beg. Maybe it was the look in her eyes. Not hatred. Not fear. Just quiet determination. The soldiers set up a neural pain device. It was a Velcris invention designed for one purpose: to cause unbearable suffering without leaving marks on the body. They attached small sensors to Ji-woo's head and arms. Last chance, Rakthor said to the girl. Where is your brother? Where are the resistance leaders hiding? Ji-woo looked at her mother. Dune was crying, begging with her eyes for Ji-woo to just tell them. To save herself. But Ji-woo thought of Hyun-woo and all the other people fighting for freedom. She thought of the future where maybe someday, humans would not have to live in fear. She looked directly at Commander Rakthor and said one word, no. Rakthor's eyes narrowed. He activated the device. Ji-woo's body went rigid as waves of pain shot through her nervous system. It felt like fire and ice at the same time, like every cell in her body was being torn apart. But she bit down hard and did not scream. She would not give them that satisfaction. The torture went on. Minutes became hours. The other humans were forced to watch, tears streaming down their faces. Dune collapsed, held up only by the soldiers gripping her arms. But still Ji-woo would not speak. Taeyong felt something strange in his ancient chest. It was a feeling he had not experienced in over 1,000 years. He did not have a name for it, but if he did, he might have called it shame. After 2 hours, Ji-woo's small body could take no more. The neural device had pushed her past the limits of human endurance. She fell to her knees, the sensors still attached to her skin. Blood ran from her nose. Her breathing was shallow and weak. Commander Rakthor stood over her. Such a waste. All you had to do was talk. Ji-woo raised her head one last time. Her voice was barely a whisper, but everyone in the square heard it clearly. Humans, never surrender. Then she fell forward and did not move again. Dune's scream of grief echoed across the settlement. It was a sound of pure anguish, a mother's heart breaking. The other humans stood in shocked silence. A child had just died in front of them, murdered for refusing to betray her people. Rakthor removed the sensors from Ji-woo's body. Let this be a lesson, he announced. This is what happens to those who defy the Velcris Empire. Leave the body in the square for 3 days. No one is to touch it. The soldiers left as quickly as they had come, flying away on their platforms. The humans remained frozen, afraid to move, afraid to even breathe too loud. Taeyong continued to watch from his tower. For reasons he did not understand, he started counting. counting the moments since the girl's heart had stopped beating. He did not know why. Perhaps it was habit. Perhaps it was something else. 1 minute passed. Then 5. Then 10. The ancient dragon counted each second, his golden eyes fixed on the small broken body lying in the dust below. 35 minutes had passed when Taeyong noticed the first sign that something impossible was about to happen. The 35th minute arrived like a whisper of thunder. Taeyong felt it first, a vibration in the air that made his ancient scales tingle. He had lived for 3,000 years and had never felt anything like this before. Something was wrong. Or perhaps something was very, very right. In the settlement square, every human suddenly stopped moving. The woman crying over her child became still. The old man leaning on his cane froze mid-step. Even the children stopped their quiet sobbing. All of them, every single human in the settlement, turned their heads at the exact same moment toward Ji-Woo's body. Their eyes began to glow. It was faint at first, just a shimmer of gold in their pupils. But it grew brighter with each passing second. The humans stood like statues, not speaking, not blinking, just staring at the dead girl in the center of the square. Taeyong rose to his full height on the crystal tower. His wings spread wide as he watched the impossible scene below. In all his centuries of life, through all the worlds he had seen conquered, he had never witnessed anything like this. Ji-Woo's body started to emit light. It was soft and warm, like sunlight through morning clouds. The glow came from within her, making her skin appear translucent. The light grew stronger, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. But the girl was dead. Her heart had stopped 35 minutes ago. Taeyong knew death when he saw it. Yet something was happening. Something that defied everything the dragon understood about biology and physics. In the caves beyond the settlement, Hyun-Woo was cleaning his weapon when he felt it. A sudden rush of warmth flooded through his body. His hands started shaking. Images flashed through his mind, images he had not put there himself. He saw his sister. He saw her torture. He saw her death. "No," he whispered. Then louder, "No." The other resistance fighters in the cave grabbed their weapons, thinking they were under attack. But Hyun-Woo fell to his knees, his eyes glowing with the same golden light. Tears streamed down his face as he felt Ji-Woo's last moments as if they were his own. Her pain. Her courage. Her final words. All across the planet Draker Prime, in mines and factories, in hidden camps and slave quarters, every human felt it at the same moment. Millions of minds suddenly connected like stars forming a constellation. They could feel each other's thoughts, their emotions, their memories. A network of consciousness spreading across the entire world in an instant. A young human woman named Bo-Ra was working in a science facility when the connection hit her. She was a researcher, forced to work on Velcris technology. Her mind, trained in logic and analysis, immediately understood what was happening even though it should be impossible. "The genetic trigger," she gasped. "It's real. The awakening is real." She had read about it in forbidden human archives. Ancient texts from old Earth that spoke of humanity's ultimate survival mechanism. A biological failsafe coded into their DNA over 100,000 years of evolution. It was supposed to be a myth. A story that desperate humans told themselves to maintain hope. But it was real. And it had just activated. The trigger condition was specific and terrible. The martyrdom of an innocent child who died protecting others from tyranny. Throughout human history, it had almost activated several times. But something had always stopped it at the last moment. A rescue. A surrender. A compromise. Not this time. Ji-Woo had died defiant and pure, refusing to betray her people even in unimaginable pain. Her death had unlocked something in the human species that had been sleeping since before they left Earth. Back in the settlement, Doon felt her daughter's presence in her mind. Not words exactly, but feelings and memories. She could sense Ji-Woo's love for her, for Hyun-Woo, for all humans. She could feel her daughter's last thought, a hope that her death would mean something. "Ji-Woo," Doon whispered. "My baby." Then Doon felt something else. Her body was changing. Her muscles, weakened by years of poor food and hard labor, suddenly felt stronger. Her tired bones became denser, harder. Her senses sharpened. She could hear conversations happening 3 houses away. She could smell the desert wind and identify each mineral in the soil. Her eyesight cleared, and she could see individual grains of sand 50 meters away. It was happening to all the adult humans. Their bodies were evolving in real time, rewriting their biology to become something more than they were. Not just stronger or faster, but fundamentally different. Enhanced. Evolved. The children changed too, but differently. Their minds expanded, able to process information at incredible speeds. They could learn and understand complex ideas in minutes that would have taken months before. But they did not gain the physical changes. Not yet. They were still children, still innocent. The awakening protected that innocence even as it transformed their species. Jun-Ho, the old settlement leader, felt his bent back straighten. The pain that had lived in his joints for 20 years simply vanished. He stood tall, taller than he had stood since his youth. But more important than the physical changes was the knowledge flooding into his mind. He could feel every human on the planet. He knew their names, their thoughts, their skills. A man in the southern continent who was an expert in engineering. A woman in the eastern settlements who understood Velcris technology better than most Velcris. Thousands of fighters, scientists, teachers, and leaders, all connected, all sharing their knowledge instantly. They had become a single organism spread across an entire world. Not a hive mind where individuals lost themselves, but a network where everyone remained who they were while gaining access to the collective knowledge and strength of their entire species. Hyun-Woo ran from the caves toward the settlement. He moved faster than any human should be able to move, his evolved body carrying him across the rocky terrain in long, powerful strides. Other resistance fighters followed him, all feeling the same pull toward Ji-Woo's body. When he reached the settlement, the Velcris guards at the entrance tried to stop him. There were 4 of them, armed and armored. Before the awakening, Hyun-Woo would not have had a chance against even one of them. Now he moved like water flowing around rocks. The first guard swung his weapon. Hyun-Woo was already past him, his fist striking the weak point in the armor at the shoulder joint. The guard's arm went numb and his weapon fell. The second guard fired his energy rifle. Hyun-Woo twisted, the shot missing him by centimeters. He was inside the guard's reach in an instant, his strike precise and devastating. The other 2 guards backed away, raising their weapons. But they did not fire. They had seen what this human could do. Fear entered their hearts, a feeling they were not used to experiencing. "Let me pass," Hyun-Woo said quietly. "I'm going to see my sister." The guards stepped aside. Hyun-Woo walked into the settlement square where all the humans stood in their circle around Ji-Woo. His mother saw him and their eyes met. No words were needed. Through the connection, they shared their grief and their rage. Hyun-Woo knelt beside his sister's body. The golden light still emanated from her, pulsing gently. He touched her hand. It was cold, but the light was warm. "I'm sorry I wasn't here," he said. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." Through the collective consciousness, every human on the planet felt his words. They felt his pain. And they felt something else rising up from that pain. Not just anger. Not just a desire for revenge. But purpose. Ji-Woo had not died for nothing. Her sacrifice had given them a chance. A real chance at freedom. But more than that, it had shown them what they could become. Taeyong descended from his tower for the first time in 50 years. His massive form cast a shadow over the settlement as he landed in the square. The humans did not run. They turned to face him, their golden eyes reflecting his own gaze. The ancient dragon walked slowly toward the glowing body of the child. He could feel the power radiating from the humans around him. They could probably kill him now if they wanted to. Their enhanced bodies, their perfect coordination through the mental link, their shared knowledge. Yes, they could probably bring down even an ancient Velcris dragon. But they did not attack. They simply watched and waited. Taeyong looked down at Ji-Woo's body. The light was beginning to fade now, its purpose completed. The trigger had been pulled. The awakening had begun. The girl's last act was finished. What was her name? Taeyong asked. Ji-woo, Doon answered. Her name was Ji-woo. The dragon nodded slowly. Ji-woo, he repeated. The name felt heavy on his tongue. I witnessed what was done to her. I watched and did nothing. You're Velcris, Hyunwoo said. There was no accusation in his voice, just a statement of fact. Why would you do anything? Taeyong did not have an answer. Or perhaps he did, but it was not one he wanted to speak aloud. He had watched for 3,000 years. He had seen countless injustices and told himself it was not his place to interfere. He had followed the law of his people, even when that law had become cruel and unjust. A child had shamed him without saying a word. A 13-year-old girl had shown more courage in her death than he had shown in 3 millennia of life. What will you do now? The dragon asked the humans. Jun-ho stepped forward. Through the collective consciousness, he spoke not just for himself but for every awakened human on the planet. We will be free, no matter the cost. Taeyong looked at the old human who now stood straight and strong. The Velcris Empire will not allow it. They will send armies. They will burn this world to ash rather than lose control of it. Let them come, Hyunwoo said. His hand rested on his sister's shoulder. We're ready now. The dragon spread his wings. Then you should prepare. When the Empire learns what has happened here, they will respond with overwhelming force. You have perhaps 2 days before the warships arrive. Why are you telling us this? Boare asked. She had arrived from the science facility, her mind already calculating strategies and possibilities. Taeyong looked at her, then at all the humans gathered in the square. Because a child died here today. She died with honor and courage. And I have lived too long watching honor die while doing nothing to save it. The ancient dragon took flight, his powerful wings carrying him back toward his crystal tower. But everything had changed. The world had shifted on its axis. And Taeyong knew that he would soon have to make a choice that would define the rest of his very long life. Below him, the humans began to organize. Through their mental connection, they coordinated with perfect efficiency. Every human on Draker Prime now knew the situation. They knew what was coming. And they were preparing for war. Ji-woo's body had stopped glowing. The awakening was complete. But her presence remained in the minds of every human, a constant reminder of what they were fighting for and the price that had been paid. In the caves, factories, mines, and settlements across the planet, humans stood taller than they ever had before. They were no longer slaves. They were no longer broken. They were awakened. And they would never bow again. The first battle came exactly 23 hours after the awakening. Commander Rakthor returned to the settlement with 50 soldiers, expecting to find frightened slaves. Instead, he found something that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. The humans were waiting for him, not hiding in their homes or cowering in fear. They stood in organized groups, calm and ready. Their eyes still carried that strange golden shimmer. When Rakthor's transport landed, not a single human ran away. What is this? Rakthor demanded, stepping off his platform. Why aren't you working? Get back to your duties immediately. Nobody moved. An old woman named Sunhee stepped forward. Before the awakening, she had been bent and weak, her hands crippled with pain. Now she stood straight, her eyes clear and bright. We don't take orders from you anymore, she said simply. Rakthor laughed. It was a cruel sound. You think you have a choice? I killed one of your children yesterday. I can kill more today. Now obey, or I will burn this entire settlement. Hyunwoo emerged from the crowd. He had spent the night preparing, learning combat techniques from other humans across the planet who had military experience. Through the collective consciousness, he had absorbed decades of fighting knowledge in just hours. You killed my sister, Hyunwoo said. His voice was steady, without rage or hatred. Just cold fact. Her name was Ji-woo. She was 13 years old. And you tortured her to death. So, Rakthor said. She was just a human. Just a slave. No, Hyunwoo replied. She was everything. And you're going to pay for what you did. Rakthor signaled his soldiers. Kill them all. The soldiers raised their weapons and fired. Energy bolts screamed through the air, designed to burn through flesh and bone. But the humans were already moving. They had felt the soldiers' intentions through tiny changes in body language, processed through their enhanced minds and shared instantly with everyone. Hyunwoo Dove left as a bolt passed through the space where his head had been. He rolled, came up running, faster than any human should move. A soldier tried to track him with his rifle, but Hyunwoo zigzagged, his path unpredictable and impossibly quick. Other humans attacked from different directions, their movements coordinated perfectly. They knew where each other would be, what each would do, as if they had practiced together for years instead of hours. 3 humans converged on a single soldier from different angles. He couldn't aim at all of them at once. They struck the weak points in his armor, and he went down. Rakthor watched in shock as his trained soldiers fell one by one. These were not the weak slaves he had terrorized yesterday. These were something else. Something dangerous. A young human man named Min-Soo jumped onto a soldier's back, wrapping his arm around the neck joint of the armor. He squeezed, and the armor cracked. The soldier inside gasped for air and collapsed. Sun-hee, the old woman, moved with grace that seemed impossible for her age. She picked up a fallen energy rifle, understood its mechanism instantly through knowledge shared by Bo-Ra, the scientist, and fired with perfect accuracy. A soldier's weapon exploded in his hands. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. 50 Velcro soldiers, trained warriors with advanced technology, were defeated by farmers, miners, and workers who had been slaves just 1 day ago. Rakthor found himself on his knees, surrounded by humans. His armor was damaged, his weapons gone. He looked up at Hyunwoo with fear in his eyes. It was the first time he had ever feared humans. "Please," Rakthor said. "I was just following orders." Hyunwoo looked down at the commander who had killed his sister. Every human on the planet could feel his emotions right now. The rage. The grief. The desire for revenge. It would be so easy to kill this Velcris, to make him suffer the way Jiwoo had suffered. Through the collective consciousness, Hyunwoo felt his mother's presence. Dune's thoughts came to him clearly. She wanted Rakthor dead too. But she also remembered what Jiwoo had believed in. Her daughter had died protecting others, not to create more killers. "Tie him up," Hyunwoo finally said. "He's a prisoner now. We don't kill prisoners." Some of the humans looked disappointed, but they obeyed. They understood what Hyunwoo was doing. If they killed Rakthor out of revenge, they would become like the Velcris. Jiwoo had died to free them, not to turn them into monsters. High above in his crystal tower, Taeyong had watched the entire battle. He accessed his private data files, ancient records that the Velcris Empire kept hidden from most of their people. He searched for information about humans, about their history, about their biology. What he found made his ancient blood run cold. The files were over 200 years old, written by a Velcris scientist named Drowmore who had studied humans extensively. The report was labeled with the highest security clearance. Taeyong read the words that had been hidden for centuries. Humans possess a genetic failsafe unlike any species we have encountered. They call it the awakening. It activates when specific conditions are met, the death of an innocent child who dies protecting their community. When activated, the human species undergoes rapid evolution. Physical enhancement, mental connection, accelerated learning. But most dangerous is their unity of purpose. A awakened humanity cannot be controlled through fear or force. They become, essentially, unstoppable. The report continued with a recommendation. We must never allow the awakening to occur. Keep humans divided. Keep them weak. Never let their children become martyrs. If the awakening happens, we should abandon that world immediately and hope the awakened humans never leave it. Taeyong closed the file. The Velcris leaders had known. They had always known what humans could become. That's why the laws were so harsh. That's why they worked so hard to keep humans broken and separated. They were afraid. The ancient dragon looked down at the settlement where humans were now organizing their defense. He thought about Jiwoo, the small girl who had refused to break. He thought about the 3,000 years he had spent following orders, watching injustice and calling it law. He made his decision. Taeyong spread his wings and flew toward the Velcris military command post on the other side of the planet. It was a massive fortress built into a mountain, home to 5,000 Velcris soldiers and 36 warships. This was where the Empire's response would come from. When he landed at the command center, alarms blared. Dragons rarely came here. Other Velcris rushed to see what brought such an ancient and respected member of their species to the military base. General Kreldak emerged from the command building. He was a warrior dragon, his scales scarred from countless battles. He led the Velcris forces on Draker Prime. "Taeyong," Kreldak said with respect. "What brings you here?" "I need to speak with you about the humans," Taeyong said. Kreldak's expression darkened. "Yes, we received reports. Some kind of uprising in the settlements. Don't worry, we're preparing a response. We'll crush this rebellion within the week." "You don't understand," Taeyong said. "This is not a normal rebellion. The humans have awakened." Kreldak stared at him. "That's impossible. The awakening is just a myth." "It's real. I've seen it. I watched it happen." The general's face became serious. He led Taeyong into a private room and sealed the door. "Tell me everything." Taeyong described what he had witnessed. Jiwoo's death. The golden light. The transformation of every human on the planet. The battle where 50 trained soldiers fell to farmers and miners. Kreldak listened in silence. When Taeyong finished, the general was quiet for a long moment. "Then we have no choice," Kreldak finally said. "We must exterminate them. All of them. Every human on this planet must die before they spread to other worlds." "No," Taeyong said firmly. Kreldak's eyes widened. "No? You dare refuse a military order?" "I refuse to commit genocide against a species that has done nothing wrong except want to be free." The general stood up, his body tense with anger. "They are slaves. They exist to serve us. If they won't serve, they must be eliminated." "When did we become this?" Taeyong asked. "Our ancestors were explorers and builders. We created beauty and wonder. Now we murder children and call it keeping order." "You're sympathizing with humans," Kreldak said with disgust. "You've lived too long, old one. Your mind has gone soft." Taeyong's eyes hardened. "My mind has never been clearer. I watched a 13-year-old girl die yesterday. She was tortured for hours, and she never begged. She never broke. She showed more honor in her death than our entire empire has shown in 5 centuries. "Enough," Kreldak shouted. "You will support the empire, or you will be declared a traitor." "Then I am a traitor," Taeyong said quietly. The room fell silent. Other Velcris who had heard the conversation through the door backed away in shock. A dragon had never betrayed the empire before. It was unthinkable. Kreldak reached for his weapon, but Taeyong was faster. The ancient dragon's tail swept the general's legs, knocking him down. Before Kreldak could recover, Taeyong was at the command console, his claws moving over the controls. "What are you doing?" Kreldak shouted. "Giving them a chance," Taeyong replied. He accessed the military network and sent a data package to every human settlement on the planet. The package contained the locations of every Velcris military installation, the schedule of patrol ships, the weaknesses in Velcris armor and weapons, and most importantly, the knowledge that the Velcris High Command was planning to exterminate all humans within 3 days. Through their collective consciousness, every awakened human received the information instantly. Boara and other scientists immediately began analyzing the data. Junho started coordinating a planet-wide defense. Hyunwoo and the fighters prepared for the war that was now inevitable. Taeyong destroyed the command console and turned to face Kreldak and the other Velcris soldiers who had entered the room. "I'm leaving now," Taeyong said. "Anyone who tries to stop me will die." No one moved. Taeyong was ancient and powerful. Even a room full of soldiers knew they couldn't defeat him without heavy casualties. The old dragon walked out of the command center and took flight. Behind him, alarms screamed and Velcris rushed to activate their weapons. But Taeyong was already gone, flying toward the human settlements. He had made his choice. After 3,000 years of watching and doing nothing, he had finally chosen a side. Not because the humans were perfect or innocent, but because a small girl had shown him what true courage looked like, and he could no longer pretend he didn't see the difference between honor and tyranny. The war was coming. The Velcris Empire would not forgive this betrayal. Blood would flow across Draker Prime. But for the first time in millennia, Taeyong felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt alive. He felt like he was fighting for something that mattered. He felt like he had finally remembered what it meant to have honor. The Velcris War Council gathered in the Grand Hall of the Imperial Fortress. 12 elder dragons sat in a circle, their scales showing the colors of age and authority. They had ruled this sector of space for 500 years without challenge. Now they faced something they had never expected, rebellion from the weakest species in their empire. General Kreldak stood in the center of the circle, his armor still damaged from his encounter with Taeyong. He reported everything that had happened. The human awakening, the defeat of his soldiers, and worst of all, Taeyong's betrayal. An ancient has turned against us, one elder said with disbelief. In all our history, this has never happened. Taeyong has gone mad, another elder stated. 3,000 years is too long. His mind has broken. His mind is fine, Kreldak said bitterly. He chose the humans over his own people. He gave them our military secrets. Because of him, they know we're planning to exterminate them. The eldest dragon, a female named Sharla, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. Then we must act immediately. Send all available forces. Burn every human settlement. Leave no survivors. What about Taeyong? Kreldak asked. He is a traitor, Sharla said coldly. If he interferes, kill him. The order went out across the planet. Every Velcris soldier, every warship, every weapon was mobilized. 10,000 warriors prepared for battle. 50 warships loaded their weapons. The Velcris Empire would show the humans what happened to slaves who dared to dream of freedom. But they had made one critical mistake. They assumed the humans would be afraid. In the settlements, the awakened humans worked with purpose and precision. Boare coordinated with scientists across the planet, using the information Taeyong had provided to understand Velcris technology. Within hours, they had figured out how to hack into Velcris communication systems. We can hear everything they're planning, Boare told Junho through their mental connection. Every troop movement, every attack pattern. They don't know we've broken their encryption. Junho smiled grimly. The old leader had become the central coordinator for all human resistance. Through the awakening, he could communicate with every human instantly, turning their entire species into a single unified fighting force. How long until they attack? Junho asked. 6 hours, Boare replied. They're sending everything they have. Hyunwoo stood in the settlement square where his sister had died. Other fighters gathered around him, men and women who had been farmers and workers 2 days ago. Now they moved like trained soldiers, their enhanced bodies responding with speed and strength that would have been impossible before the awakening. We can't beat them in direct combat, Hyunwoo said, speaking to the group but also to every human on the planet through their shared consciousness. They have superior numbers and technology. But we have something they don't. What's that? Asked Min-soo, the young man who had fought so well in the first battle. We care about each other, Hyunwoo replied. We fight for something worth dying for. They fight because they're ordered to. That makes all the difference. Doon approached her son, carrying medical supplies. She had organized all the doctors and medics across the planet into a coordinated network, ready to treat wounded humans wherever the battles would happen. Your sister would be proud of you, Doon said quietly. Hyunwoo touched the ground where Jiwoo had fallen. He could still feel her presence in his mind, in the collective consciousness of all awakened humans. She was part of them now, forever. Her courage lived in every person who shared the mental connection. I'm doing this for her, Hyunwoo said. For all of us. So no more children have to die the way she did. Across the planet, humans prepared their defenses. They had no warships or heavy weapons, but they had intelligence and unity. They knew exactly where the Velcris would attack and when. They set traps in the mountains, prepared ambush points in the valleys, and organized evacuation routes for those who couldn't fight. Taeyong landed in the largest human settlement and found Junho waiting for him. Why did you help us? Junho asked directly. You're risking everything. The ancient dragon looked at the old human leader. Because I have lived 3,000 years and never once stood up for what was right. A 13-year-old girl showed me what courage looks like. I decided I wanted to feel that before I died. You know they'll kill you for this, Junho said. Perhaps, Taeyong agreed. But I would rather die fighting for honor than live another 1,000 years as a coward. Junho smiled. Then you're one of us now. Welcome to the resistance. The ancient dragon taught the humans everything he knew about Velcris combat tactics. Through the collective consciousness, every human fighter absorbed the knowledge simultaneously. They learned how Velcris soldiers thought, how they fought, where their weaknesses were. They relied too much on their technology, Taeyong explained. They've forgotten how to adapt. Use that against them. The 6 hours passed quickly. Human scouts positioned in the mountains saw the Velcris forces approaching. 50 warships darkened the sky. Thousands of soldiers on gravity platforms spread out across the terrain. It looked like an unstoppable force. General Kreldak led the attack personally, determined to crush the human rebellion and kill the traitor Taeyong. He divided his forces into 3 groups, planning to strike the major settlements simultaneously. But the humans were ready. The first Velcris warship that entered the narrow mountain pass found itself trapped. Humans had collapsed the passage behind it using carefully placed explosives made from mining equipment. The ship couldn't turn around in the confined space. From caves in the cliff walls, humans fired stolen Velcris weapons at the ship's weak points that Taeyong had identified. The warship's shields failed. Its engines exploded. The massive vessel crashed into the canyon floor. In the southern territories, Velcris soldiers landed in what they thought was an empty valley. They walked into a trap. The ground beneath them had been undermined by miners working through the night, using techniques shared through the collective consciousness. When the soldiers reached the center of the valley, the ground collapsed. Hundreds of Velcris fell into the pit. Before they could use their gravity platforms to escape, humans sealed the top with a rockslide. At the main settlement, Hyunwoo led the defense. He had studied every piece of information Taeyong provided, every tactical detail Boare had analyzed from hacked communications. He knew exactly where Kreldak would attack and with how many soldiers. The Velcris came in waves, their weapons firing continuously. But the humans fought with coordination that seemed impossible. They moved as one organism, each person knowing exactly where others would be and what they would do. Sunhee, the old woman who had stood up to Rakthor, manned a captured Velcris cannon. She fired with precision, taking down gravity platforms one by one. Years of weak hands and poor eyesight were gone, replaced by enhanced strength and perfect vision. Minsu led a team that sabotaged Velcris communication relays, cutting off the invaders from each other. Without coordination, the Velcris soldiers became confused and vulnerable. Taeyong took to the sky to face the Velcris warships directly. Other dragons saw him and attacked, unable to believe that one of their own would fight beside humans. But Taeyong was ancient and skilled. He dodged their attacks and struck back with precision, damaging engines and weapon systems. General Kreldak watched his perfect attack falling apart. How were the humans winning? They had no military training, no advanced weapons, no warships. Yet his forces were being defeated piece by piece. Then he understood. They were fighting as one united force while his soldiers fought as individuals following orders. The humans knew his plans before he executed them. They adapted faster than he could respond. Fall back, Kreldak ordered. Retreat to the fortress. But retreating was harder than attacking. The humans pursued, harrying the Velcris forces every step of the way. Soldiers who fell behind were captured. Damaged ships were brought down. By the time Kreldak reached the safety of the fortress, he had lost half his forces. Inside the fortress walls, the general stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. In one day, the mighty Velkrus Empire had been defeated by freed slaves. It was impossible. It was humiliating. And it was just the beginning. Outside, the humans gathered. They didn't celebrate their victory because they knew this was not over. The Velkrus would call for reinforcements from other worlds. More ships would come, more soldiers, more weapons. But something had changed. The humans had proven they could fight. They had proven they could win. Most importantly, they had proven they would never be slaves again. Hyunwoo stood with his mother and looked up at the fortress walls. Somewhere in there, Commander Rakthor was still a prisoner. The Velkrus who had killed Jiwoo was alive while his sister was dead. Part of Hyunwoo wanted to storm the fortress and kill Rakthor himself. But he remembered what Jiwoo believed in. She had died protecting others, not to create more violence. If the humans became as cruel as the Velkrus, then what had she died for? We need to talk to them, Hyunwoo said. Doon looked at her son with surprise. Talk? After everything they've done. Jiwoo would want us to try, Hyunwoo replied. Before more people die, we should at least try. Through the collective consciousness, Hyunwoo shared his thoughts with all awakened humans. Some disagreed, wanting revenge for centuries of slavery and suffering. But others understood what he was saying. They had a choice now, a choice to be different than their oppressors. Jun-ho supported the idea. Send a message to the fortress. Tell them we want to negotiate. Inside the fortress, General Kreldak received the human message with suspicion. But he was also practical. He had lost half his forces in a single day. If the fighting continued, he might lose everything. What do they want? Kreldak asked. The message was simple: freedom for all humans. Peace between our species. Or we continue this war until one of us is destroyed. Kreldak looked at his remaining forces, at the tactical displays showing human positions surrounding the fortress. He thought about the ancient Taeyong fighting alongside slaves. He thought about how everything he believed about human weakness had been proven wrong. For the first time in his life, the proud Velkrus general considered that maybe, just maybe, his empire had been built on lies. And perhaps it was time for the truth. The meeting took place in neutral ground, a wide plain between the human settlements and the Velkrus fortress. General Kreldak came with 20 guards, their weapons ready but not aimed. Jun-ho led the human delegation with Hyunwoo, Doon, Boare, and a dozen others. Taeyong stood between both groups, the ancient dragon who had betrayed his own kind for what he believed was right. The two sides faced each other in silence for a long moment. The wind blew across the desert, carrying dust and the smell of distant fires from the recent battle. You wanted to talk, Kreldak said finally. So talk. Jun-ho stepped forward. Despite his age, he stood tall and strong, his body transformed by the awakening. We want freedom. Not just for humans on this world, but for all humans in Velkrus territory. We want to be recognized as equals, not slaves. Kreldak laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Equals? You were nothing before we came. We brought civilization to your primitive worlds. You brought chains, Hyunwoo said quietly. You brought death. You killed my sister because she wouldn't tell you where freedom fighters were hiding. She was 13 years old. The general's expression hardened. War has casualties. She chose to resist. She was a child, Doon said, her voice shaking with controlled emotion. She chose to protect her family. That's not war. That's murder. Kreldak looked at the humans, really looked at them for the first time. He saw determination in their eyes, but also something else. Not hatred, despite everything the Velkrus had done to them. There was sadness there, and grief, but also hope. If I agree to your demands, the Empire will send more forces, Kreldak said. They will not accept human freedom. They will destroy this entire planet rather than let slaves go free. Then we'll fight them too, Hyunwoo replied. And we'll win. Just like we won today. You won one battle against one fortress, Kreldak argued. The Empire has thousands of worlds, millions of soldiers, weapons that can crack planets in half. Taeyong spoke for the first time. The Empire is weak, Kreldak. It's built on fear and oppression. I've lived 3,000 years and watched it rot from the inside. The humans are strong because they fight for each other, not because they're ordered to. You're a traitor, Kreldak spat. You abandoned your own people for slaves. I abandoned an empire that lost its honor, Taeyong corrected. There's a difference. Boare stepped forward, holding a data device. We've been studying the information Taeyong gave us. We found something interesting in the old Velcris records. 200 years ago, your scientists discovered that humans have this ability to awaken. Your leaders knew. They've always known what we could become. That's why they worked so hard to keep us broken. She activated the device, projecting the ancient report for everyone to see. Kreldak read the words written by the long-dead scientist Drowmore. His face grew pale as he understood the implications. They knew, Kreldak whispered. The High Council knew and never told us. They were afraid, Junho said. Afraid of what would happen if humans ever united. Afraid of losing their power. So they built an empire on lies and called it strength. The general was quiet for a long time, staring at the ancient report. Everything he had believed about Velcris superiority, about the natural order of the strong ruling the weak, was revealed as propaganda. His entire life had been based on a lie. What happens now? Kreldak asked, and for the first time, he sounded uncertain. That depends on you, Hyunwoo said. You can keep fighting. More of your soldiers will die. More of our people will die. Eventually, the Empire will send enough forces to destroy this planet, and everyone on it. Or you can choose peace. Peace, Kreldak repeated the word as if it was foreign to him. Perhaps it was. The Velcris had not known peace for centuries, only conquest and control. A young Velcris soldier in Kreldak's guard stepped forward. General, if we make peace with humans, we're traitors like Taeyong. The Empire will execute us. Perhaps, Kreldak said. Or perhaps it's time for the Empire to change. He looked at the human delegation, at Taeyong, at his own soldiers. Then he made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. I will send a message to the High Council, Kreldak said. I will tell them that humans on Draker Prime are now free. I will tell them that any Velcris who wants to live in peace with humans is welcome to stay. Those who cannot accept this can leave. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. The Velcris soldiers looked at their general in shock. Some nodded slowly, while others looked angry and betrayed. You're giving them what they want, one soldier demanded. After they killed our brothers? After we enslaved their entire species, Kreldak corrected. After we murdered their children. Yes, I'm giving them what they want. Because it's also what's right. The soldier spat on the ground and walked away. 3 others followed him. But the rest of Kreldak's guard remained, their weapons lowered. Junho extended his hand to the Velcris general. It was a human gesture of peace. Kreldak looked at the hand for a moment, then reached out and grasped it. The first handshake between former master and former slave. There's one more thing, Hyunwoo said. Commander Rakthor. The one who killed Ji-woo. We have him prisoner. Kreldak nodded. What will you do with him? Through the collective consciousness, Hyunwoo felt the emotions of every human on the planet. Many wanted Rakthor dead. They wanted justice for Ji-woo and for all the other humans who had suffered and died under Velcris rule. But Hyunwoo thought about his sister's last words. Humans never surrender. She hadn't said humans never forgive. She hadn't said humans seek revenge. She had spoken about endurance, about survival, about refusing to break. We'll hold him for trial, Hyunwoo decided. A fair trial, where both humans and Velcris can testify. Let justice decide his fate, not revenge. Dune touched her son's shoulder. She understood what that decision cost him. Through their mental connection, Every human felt Hyunwoo's struggle, his pain, his choice to honor his sister's memory by being better than their enemies. The negotiations continued for hours. Details were worked out, agreements were made. The Velcris would withdraw from all human settlements. Humans would have their own territory, their own government. Trade and cooperation would be voluntary, not forced. News of the agreement spread quickly. Some Velcris refused to accept it and left the planet, vowing to report this treason to the High Council. But others, tired of endless conquest and meaningless violence, chose to stay and help build something new. 3 days after the agreement, a memorial service was held in the settlement square where Jiwoo had died. Humans and Velcris both attended, standing together in a silence that held more meaning than words. A statue was erected on the exact spot where the young girl had fallen. It showed Jiwoo standing tall, her head held high, defiance and courage in every line of the carved stone. At the base, an inscription in both human and Velcris languages read, Jiwoo. She died at 13 so billions could live free. Hyunwoo placed flowers at the statue's feet. His mother stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. Around them, thousands of humans gathered, all feeling the same grief and gratitude through their awakened connection. Taeyong approached the memorial, his massive form casting a shadow over the crowd. The ancient dragon looked at the statue for a long time. "I watched her die," Taeyong said quietly. "I did nothing to stop it. That shame will stay with me for the rest of my life." "But you did something after," Hyunwoo replied. "You chose honor over obedience. Jiwoo would appreciate that." "Do you think she knew?" Taeyong asked. "Do you think she knew what her death would cause?" Hyunwoo looked up at his sister's stone face. Through the collective consciousness, he could still feel her presence, woven into the fabric of every awakened human mind. "I don't think she died to cause anything," Hyunwoo said. "She died because she believed we were worth protecting. Everything that came after, that's just us trying to be worthy of her faith." Across the planet, in settlements and cities, in mines and factories that were no longer prisons, humans felt those words resonate through their shared consciousness. Jiwoo had not planned a revolution. She had simply refused to betray the people she loved. The revolution had come because her courage had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping for 100,000 years. The following months brought challenges. The Velcris High Council sent investigators, then threats, then finally warships. But the awakened humans were ready. They had built defenses, trained fighters, and most importantly, they had allies. Taeyong and the Velcris who chose peace stood with them. The battles were hard, but the humans won more than they lost. And with each victory, more species in the Velcris Empire began to wonder, if humans could free themselves, why couldn't they? Rebellions sparked on other worlds. Not all succeeded, but enough did to shake the foundation of the empire. The Velcris High Council faced a choice, reform or collapse. 50 years later, Hyunwoo sat in the gardens that now grew where once there had been only dust and despair. He was older now, though the awakening had slowed his aging considerably. He would likely live for centuries, as would all awakened humans. Taeyong landed beside him, the ancient dragon moving more slowly now but still strong. They had become close friends over the decades, the human and the dragon who had both learned the price and value of honor. "I visited the memorial today," Taeyong said. "There were children there, playing around the statue. They don't remember the slavery. To them, freedom is normal." "That's good," Hyunwoo replied. "That's what Jiwoo died for. So the next generation wouldn't have to know what we knew." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors of gold and red. In the distance, human and Velcris children played together, a sight that would have been impossible just 5 decades ago. "Do you think we've built something worthy of her sacrifice?" Taeyong asked. Hyunwoo smiled. "We've built a world where children can play without fear. Where different species work together instead of one enslaving the other. Where courage is remembered and honored. Yes, I think she'd be proud." The statue of Jiwoo stood in the square, her stone eyes looking toward the horizon. Around her feet, flowers grew year-round, tended by humans and Velcris alike. She remained 13 forever, frozen in her moment of defiance. But her legacy was alive in every awakened human, in every freed species, in every person who chose courage over fear and justice over revenge. The Velcris Empire had fallen, not in a day but over decades, crumbling under the weight of its own corruption. In its place, something new was growing. A federation of free species, working together as equals. It was messy and imperfect, full of disagreements and challenges. But it was built on choice, not force. On cooperation, not domination. And at the center of it all was the memory of a 13-year-old girl who had refused to break, who had died protecting others, and whose courage had changed the galaxy forever. Hyunwoo stood and placed his hand on the statue one more time. Through the collective consciousness that connected all awakened humans, he sent a thought to his sister, wherever her spirit might be. We did it, Ji-woo. We are free. And we'll make sure we stay worthy of what you gave us. The wind blew across the gardens, carrying the scent of flowers and the sound of children's laughter. Somewhere in that wind, Hyunwoo thought he could hear his sister's voice, young and bright and full of hope. Humans never surrender, she had said with her last breath. And they never would.